Good day everyone, I'm Laika Maysima Franca and today I'll be discussing to you some brief things and facts about Western Africa. West Africa forms the watermost region of the African continent. People have occupied the area for thousands years and its population is ethnically diverse to culturally relatively similar. The beliefs of native cultures include Islam, Christianity, and various traditional African religions. West Africa best destination include top attraction in Mali, Niger, Senegal, Ghana, Cameroon, and Gabon. West Africa is famous for its cultural diversity and rich history. Unique mud architecture and landscape dominate Niger and Mali's major sites. West African agriculture is based on cash crops for exports in the coastal trade areas. There are many different sources of exports that come out of Western Africa. The most common crops are peanuts, cotton, rice, cassava, coffee, and livestock. Talking about storytelling, Africans love a good story and a good storyteller. They are primarily an oral people. Their stories are not written down but told verbally, and are often created to be performed with music and dance. Since we're talking about storytelling and crops, I have a story to be told for you, which is a West African tale, a story of the dress that sang. Anansi the spider had become very arrogant and far too full of himself. God was not happy with him, not happy at all, until God decided to teach him a lesson. In the same village, Anansi and Chameleon both owned field of crops. When the crops were sown, God sent rain as he always did. But this year it only rained on Chameleon's field. Not a drop fell in Anansi's land. Chameleon crops grow strong and tall, while Anansi's field was bare earth with no single shoot of green. Anansi was angry, but he had an idea. At night, he crept to Chameleon's field and began to harvest the crops, leaving his footprints everywhere. This might seem like a strange thing to do to leave footprints everywhere, but Anansi was clever. He knew that Chameleon leaves no footprints on the ground. In the morning, Anansi went to the chief of the village. He claimed that he, Anansi, was the owner of the field of the crops, not Chameleon, and he could prove it. He showed the chief the footprints and can you believe it? The chief awarded Anansi the field. God was annoyed. He could not let Anansi get away with that, so he made a plan to help Chameleon. He told Chameleon to dig a hole that was tiny on the surface, but which led underground to great tunnels and a huge cavern. Chameleon worked hard and soon the hole was ready. But God had not finished. He told Chameleon to make a cloak, a fantastic cloak made from vines and flies, which when the sun shone on it, glittered brilliantly like the most precious jewels. The first time Anansi saw Chameleon wear the cloak, he wanted it. Of course, he asked to buy it. Chameleon pretended to think about it. Such a fine cloak was very valuable. The more reluctant to sell Chameleon seemed, the more Anansi wanted that cloak. Finally, they agreed on the price. Chameleon would sell the cloak for as much grain as Anansi could put into the hole he made. Anansi looked at the tiny hole in the ground and thought he had got himself a bargain. He started to fill the hole, but as the days passed, and still the hole remained empty. Anansi began to realize that this time it was he who had been tricked. As for the cloak, he gave that to the chief as thanks for awarding him the field. The chief was at first delighted to own such fine cloak and wear it constantly. But after a while, the vines broke and flies flew away. The chief was angry. He thought Anansi had dared to trick him. As punishment, he ordered Anansi not only to give Chameleon the field back, but also to give him the best of his fields. And that is how Anansi the trickster was tricked. So what is Trickster Tale and who is Anansi? So Anansi is one of the characters. Anansi is one of the most popular characters in West African storytelling. He is a trickster. Trickster tales use animals' characters with human features to help us understand human nature. And the other characters is Chameleon and the chief of the village. The setting of the story is at the farm and the village. And the conflict is person versus person or Anansi versus Chameleon. The story is told from a third-person point of view. The narrator is telling what Anansi is doing as well as Chameleon. So what are the life lessons we can get in the story? First, investigate further before believing. Second, we have to remember the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And lastly, we have to remember Matthew chapter 7 verse 12, in everything therefore, treat people the same way you want them to treat you, for this is the law and the prophets. So what is the purpose of this story? So the purpose of this story is to inform. The myth is explaining that stealing is not okay and that the karma will always come back on you. So apparently, always be kind to others. And that's all for today. Thank you and I hope you have learned something.